And like we walk in, we make our way in, and we're kind of looking around, kind of trying to see, and we just notice there's like a bunch of people. And there's like, beds kind of moved away again like that one room, and there's people on these beds or whatever. And once we started to realize what we could see, there was just straight up mass sex on every bed. Couples, girls on girls, 3 or 4 guys with 1 girl. I mean, you name it, you could see it, and they were scattered everywhere. It was what I called scattered ass that night. What is up, tubers of the U? How are you guys doing out there, man? I hope you're staying healthy, doing well, and all that good stuff, avoiding the plague, and hopefully we're getting on the backside of it, as you will. So hopefully everybody's still staying safe and healthy out there. Anyway, so welcome to another episode of Sir Blasphemy's Travels. I'm yours truly, Sir Blasphemy. Not in the get up today, man. Kind of wanted to tell you some stories. I mean, I haven't really been able to go anywhere again because a lot of things are closed down. So I'm just kind of waiting for the opportunity to get out and go some places. And so I thought I would just kind of tell you a fun little story about myself, get to know me a little bit, because this channel is going to be about traveling. It's going to be about doing crazy antics, especially the giveaways to people. I'm going to be giving away tons of cash in the future off this site. That's why I need subscribers right now. So if you got a moment, like and subscribe to this channel, because one day you could be the recipient of one of my giveaways. You could be getting hundreds of thousands of dollars. It all depends on how much I grow and how much this channel really takes off. So please like and subscribe if you get a moment. And always comment, man. I always welcome your comments when you can. I always try to respond to everybody if I can. So anyway, so I thought today I'd kind of tell you a little bit about myself and a little history, a little background on me, some fun stories, some engaging stories that you might appreciate. So as you can tell maybe in the background here, if you take a look, I don't know if you can see that, hopefully you can, a little guitar action going. I've been a guitar player for, about 30 years or so, and electric guitar player. And I was in a band in Dallas, Texas, in the very late 90s and early 2000s. I was in a heavy metal band, and we got to be well known for a local act. We never broke through, never got big or anything like that, but we were well known. We got radio play in Dallas and surrounding areas, that were there, Austin, Houston, Wichita Falls, Louisiana. So we had some radio play and stuff like that, but all in all, we were just a local band. We weren't Metallica or anything like that. We didn't break through, but we had a nice little following and we did quite well. So it was a band that I had started and we'd had a lot of fun. So I thought that I would kind of tell you some stories that that might make you smile out there, that might go, wow, that even happens with local bands and stuff like that. But let me just say, stories about groupies, and let me tell you, when I go into these stories, I'm definitely not trying to disrespect women. I'm not trying to do anything like that. When we're all young, dumb, and full of you-know-what, we all, did all kinds of things. When I was young, in that band, it was about making music, and it was about girls. That's what it was all about. And so I'm just going to tell you some stories about some groupies that kind of ran around with us, or maybe didn't run around with us, but that we encountered. And I can tell you, I can imagine what it would be like being in a huge, well-known band when it comes to groupies and having fun with the ladies, if you will. So I've got 2 stories I'll share with you today. And we'll start off with kind of a mild one, and I'll give you a little background here and tell you about this story. So we had gotten to be, kind of well known. The name of my band back in the day was Ominous. And we were again, like I said, a metal band. And so we had played, much like any kind of local bands. If any of you have played in a band on any level, it doesn't have to be metal, whatever country, it could be, whatever the case may be, you could be a DJ. Most of the time, if you're a local band, you play to half-empty clubs or empty clubs, and the rarity you'll get full clubs, And if you start to make a name for yourself, if you can bring in 50 to 100 people into a club one night to see you, or see you consistently, you're doing well for a local band, all right? So It's definitely a grinding deal. You practice endlessly, and you sometimes play to an audience of 10 sometimes. So anyway, so we had this gig, and we'd already grown, we'd already got our name out. And this was in Wichita Falls, Texas. And there was a rock station. I don't know if it's still there. If some of you end up watching this and you're in Wichita Falls, Texas, I don't know if the Bear is still there. I think that was the name of the radio station. And there was a guy, the name, and I only know his last name because the name of the club was named after his last name. But I think his name was like Timmy Mac or Tommy Mac. I don't, like Mac something. Anyway, but he was a radio DJ for their like rock metal station that was in Wichita Falls, Texas, right on the border of Oklahoma. And so he would play our music all the time, and he had bought a club, and he had like a record store and a like, you know, t-shirt, you know, and all that. And I say record, but like CD store, I'm giving my age away. CD store, tapes, whatever. He had it in the front of the store, and then in the back was a huge venue. And I mean, well, when I say huge for local bands, you know, it could fill about 500 people in there. And then it had like a nice little green room where you could go and relax. There's like couches, there's like PlayStation and Nintendo in there and TVs. So it was really cool, and it was separate from like the venue. So he had asked us, we'd got to know him because he'd played our stuff, and he'd asked us if that we wanted to play like his grand opening. And we were like, yeah, absolutely. And we were going to be the headliner. So we said yes, and he was grand opening this like the weekend before New Year's. And so there was this huge ice storm. We lived in Texas. It was about an hour and a half, Dallas, Texas. And it was about an hour and a half or 2 hour drive, something like that, to Wichita Falls. It's been a while. And so there was this ice storm. So we had to drive all the way there in this ice storm. And we're like, man, you know, I hope this is worth it. You know, at least we're, you know, getting paid. You know, getting paid for a local band back then was you know, an epiphany if you got paid. And we were going to get paid well and all that, and hopefully make some money off some merch. So we're hoping that we're even going to have a crowd to play to with this ice storm and all this. And so we show up, and this place is packed, 500, somewhere between 400 and 500 deep. It was standing room only in this day. We were elated when we saw all the cars and the line and all the people inside. And so we play our show, and we're the headliner, so we're the last one of the night. And I mean, the crowd was fantastic. And so as I'm getting off stage, this guy approaches me, and I'm putting my stuff up and trying to get it off. And he says, hey man, he's like, there's this girl that I'm with, and she really is just digging on you, and you know, thought you were amazing and all this stuff, you know, totally inflating the young guy's ego, you know. She's like, she wants the shirt that's off your back. And I was wearing my own band shirt, you know, cardinal sin, right? In metal, you shouldn't wear your own band shirt, but I was, you know, you promo anything you can when you're a local band at that time. So I was wearing my own shirt, and or my own band shirt, and she wanted that one off of me. I mean, this thing is sweaty, stinky, you know, played a gig in it, you know, wore it all day, you know, probably wore it a million times before. And, you know, I mean, I'm sweating to the gills in this day. And I was like, yeah, sure, you know, she can have it. You know, she wants it. She'll have to follow me into the green room. And so I go back there because I had to take the shirt off. And she comes around the corner, like where I'm at, you know, and they let her in. And I'm standing there. And so I was like, hey, you know, nice to meet you. And she's looking at me. She's all, you know, and I mean, again, we're just a local band. We're nobodies. You know, and she's just staring at me, not saying a word. Her jaw's like kind of slightly open, and she's just looking at me. I was like, did you want my shirt? You know, and she just nodded at me, you know, never said a word. And I took off the shirt and gave it to her, and she held it like this and was just staring at me. And she just turned around and like walked out of the room, never said a word to me, nothing, and just was like, out. I was like, didn't want me to autograph it, nothing. So I go outside to go to our merch stand, and it's packed. There's people all around it, and we're making good money. We're selling a lot of our merch. And I can't even get to it because like there's all these people like running in to me going, hey man, can you sign this? Can you sign this? And so I'd sign a bunch of stuff or whatever. And one of the girls, like one of the people that had traveled with us, like we had a bunch of girls that would like follow us where we would go play. She was like, come here, and she like pulled on me and takes me into the women's restroom. And I go into the women's restroom, and my bass player was in there too at the time. And the rest of my band was out at the merch stand. And I go in there, and there's like some of the girls that we ran around with, and girls from the crowd, and they're all packed in there, and it's just my bass player and me. And there was like another guy in there, and he's got like a camera, you know, at the time. Remember, we didn't really have like we had like the flip phones, I think, during that time, and they didn't take very good videos. So like a guy had a camera, he's like recording, and there's like some of the girls that ran around with us and these other girls that were there, and they're like half naked on top of like the like, what do you call it, like the sink or whatever that's in the bathroom or whatever, and they're like making out, hands going everywhere, and like they bring me to the front, bring like my bass player to the front, and they're just like all over us. And so that was kind of fun watching them do their thing. I won't, you know, go too far, but it was kind of a chaotic girl on girl kind of scene in this bathroom at this gig, and there's just tons of people mashed into this girl's bathroom, this lady's bathroom, and this total, you know, porn scenes playing out, you know, in there. So anyway, that was kind of cool. And we ended up going back to this hotel because we're staying at this hotel that night with some of the other bands. There's like a band from Oklahoma City and stuff like that, and we were all staying together, and we all had rooms that were like kind of close. And like, as we got there, there was, you know, a lot of the girls from there, from the gig, you know, were there, and then the girls that ran around with us were there. And some girl, again, it was me and my bass player. I guess it was luck of the draw that night. We happened to go to like our room, and we were coming back out, and this girl like started talking to us that was at the gig, like, hey, you know, you guys did a good job and all this stuff. And just out of the blue, like me and John were like, you know, hey, thank you, John was the name of my bass player. We're like, yeah, you know, thank you. And we're like trying to get into this other room where this Oklahoma City band was at, and we're gonna go in there and party with them or whatever, and drink some beer or whatever you do, you know? And this girl's like, she's like, I'll suck both of your right now in this hallway. And we're like, what? Like, just out of the blue, I'll suck both of your, yeah, you fill in the blank in this hallway. Just out of the blue, was just talking to us normal, and then just lays that on us right before we're gonna walk in the room. Just does. And it was like, I mean, what do? You do that. So anyway, so that was like one little story, but I've got one that'll top this. That's crazy. Again, I would like to encourage you to like and subscribe to this channel. You're gonna see me out at Renaissance fairs as my alter ego, Sir Blasphemy, doing giveaways. I'm going to Scarborough Renaissance Festival 2021 starting in April. We're gonna be doing like over $1,000 giveaway in cash, stacks of cash. I'm gonna be giving away some figurines from artists that are out there. I'm gonna give away some gift cards, maybe even some tickets to that place. So, and that'll be on opening weekend, the opening Saturday. So you're gonna wanna see that. I will record all of that so it can be seen. Gonna go places, gonna be doing traveling once kind of COVID lightens up a little bit. So you're gonna wanna like and subscribe. So anyway, let me get to this story. This one is definitely a lot juicier. And this was one of those whoa moments that really took me back. Again, I was young in these days, and I hadn't seen what I was about to see. I mean, and hardly had ever heard of anything like that, you know. So we're playing this gig, and when we're in Dallas at the time, we're playing at a club called Galaxy Club, and this was in Deep Ellum in Dallas, Texas. So if you're out there from Dallas, I know you guys know about late 90s and early 2000s Deep Ellum, and you may even know about the Galaxy Club. And so it was like a heavy metal club, and there was a bunch of them. They were just lined up down there, and Deep Ellum was the place to be if you wanted to go see live music of any genre, whether it was rap, hip-hop, jazz, country, metal. There was just clubs all dedicated to that all around down there in Deep Ellum. So yeah, definitely comment if you're in Dallas and you've been to the Deep Ellum scene, comment down there, man. Let's talk about it. Those were good times, and it's still rip roars to this day from what I hear, just not like it used to be. But so anyway, we're playing this gig, and it was at the Galaxy Club, which no longer exists, that I do know. And we're playing. It wasn't very full that night, you know, maybe 20, 30 people were in this club, you know, we played. And so this couple approaches me, like they were a little older than me, but still a young couple at that, you know, at that time I was very young. and they were a little bit older than me, probably in their mid-20s. I was in my very early 20s, like 21, 22. And so they approached me like, hey man, it's a great gig, you know, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, hey man, let us buy you a beer. And I was like, all right, cool, you know, free beer, absolutely. So I go sit down with them and I start talking to them and they're like, hey, you know, we do this and do that. And, you know, they were talking about themselves. And I noticed this guy, you know, they were married and I noticed this guy's wife was like hitting on me. And he didn't seem to care. And, you know, he was just oblivious to it. That's what I was saying. I was like, dude, this guy's wife is like kind of hitting on me in front of him. You know, and I was a little like nervous about it, like this guy, you know, whipped my ass in here, you know, whatever. And so, you know, they're talking to me and everything. They're like, well, hey, we've got this event coming up. And they're like, but it's exclusive. It's only by invite only. And usually it's for members, but, you know, we're willing to like, you know, make an exception. Here, you know, here's like a couple of tickets. Or they gave me something. It was like something that I had to get in with. And they were like, it's in Arlington, Texas. And they were like, it's going to be at this big hotel. And we've got the ballroom rented out, and then we've got tons and tons of rooms rented out. You know, you can get a room. You know, if you drink too much and you party with us, you know, you get a room there and stay overnight. You know, whatever. And I was like, all right, you know, I was young and I was into pretty much any adventure. And they were like, you know, but it's only, you know, we're only inviting you, and that's it. You can bring one guest, and we prefer it to be a female. And I was like, well, okay, you know, I was like, so I can't bring like another band member. They're like, well, we're just inviting you. You can bring one if you want to, but we prefer it to be a female. So I was like, well, okay. And we had plenty of females that ran around with us. So I was like, all right. So I asked a female friend of mine that, well, that had gotten to know the band. I'll say a groupie, but also a friend, a party girl, if you will. And that hung around us, that went to all of our shows. And beautiful, beautiful girl. And I was like, hey man, you know, this couple like invited me. This was after that night, and I was speaking with her. And I was like, that couple that I was talking to that night, like they invited me to this exclusive party or whatever. And like, do you want to go? They said to like bring a female. And she was like, yeah, sure. You know, she was pretty much up for anything, you know. And it was funny, if I can backtrack just for a second, it's funny because when those two, like the man and woman, when they first called me and sit down and offer a beer, I actually thought that they were like, maybe like wanting to manage us or like sign us or whatever. The more I talked to them, you know, I realized that that's not what it is. I was like kind of disappointed or whatever. So they didn't really go into details to tell me like what this party was, right? So me and the girl, you know, that ran around with the band, the night showed up to go to this party or whatever. So we go. And we go to this big hotel. It's in Arlington, Texas, and we go inside. And we go to this big ballroom, man, and there's all kinds of people in there. I mean, guy to girl ratio was dead even. You know, I mean, it was, you know, 50-50. And normally, like at parties, you see just a ton of guys and a handful of girls. But in this case, it was like 50-50. And pretty much everybody was like couples or whatever. There was no single people, you know, that I knew of that I could tell. It seemed like everybody was together, and there was all these tables in this ballroom. We're all sitting around, and me and the girl that I came with, like we sat down at this table and got talking to people, and there was a variety of people from all ages, in our age range and older. So we're in there and we're kind of, you know, starting to look around a little bit more and starting to kind of notice things. And so I've had a couple of beers or whatever, and I decided to go to the bathroom. And so in the bathroom, like the ballroom was sitting here, and there was like a hallway. You went out like this door, and there's a hallway here. And then right across that, literally from the ballroom, there was like a bathroom. So I go into the men's room. I walk in there, and I turn around the corner, and there's this girl in there with this guy. He is peeing, and this girl is like making out with him. I guess his wife, girlfriend, whatever. Like in the men's restroom, like they're almost having sex, like at the urinal while he's peeing. And I'm like, what's going on here? You know, so like I just thought they were really drunk, whatever. So still being young and naive, you know. And so I use the restroom, whatever. And the girl that I was with finally starts to catch on. She's like, you know, what kind of party is this? And I was like, I don't know, but let me tell you what I just saw in the men's bathroom. And so anyway, like not much, you know, had really happened in this ballroom. There was this and that. There's a little bit of a backstory to this that I'll get into another time, but I'll save that because I need to kind of get along here in this story. So anyway, so they make an announcement. I finally see the couple that had invited me, and I got to speak to them for a few minutes, but I didn't really see them the rest of the evening, and I'll tell you why. So they make this announcement like, hey, everybody, we're gonna go up, so-and-so had gotten married today, and they're here to celebrate, and their suite is here. We've got a list here. Come up and grab the list of the rooms, and these are all the rooms that we have rented out, and you can come party, and blah, 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 blah. So we were like, all right, cool. Sounds fun. Sounds like a big hotel bash, So we go up, and I go into this room. So me and the girl I was with, we go into this first room, like on the little list. And there was like nobody in there, but I noticed something strange with this hotel room. There was like if I can remember this right, there was like a bed against the wall, and then like a couch, like they had been moved to where the middle area of the room was completely open, and like the beds had been pushed up against the wall, and the couches or whatever furniture had been pushed up against the other wall. And so like I'm going in the room, and again I'm going to use the restroom, drinking beer, there's not really anybody in there. There's a couple people like standing around. And I tell her, I was like, well, I'm gonna go use the restroom. On my way to the restroom, there's like a closet, and then there's the restroom. I look inside the closet, and there's this guy sitting on a chair, much like the one I'm sitting on right now, and there's a girl between his legs, and her head's going up and down. I'm sure you can imagine what's going on. And I was like, right on, dude, and he's like, and I was like, man, there's a lot of this going on, and that I've seen. And each time it's when I'm going to the restroom, I see something. And so, anyway, like me and the girl I was with, we stand around and there, for a while, and there's not really anything going on, and I was kind of like, oh, well, this kind of, I think this is going to blow or whatever. So we decided on this little list that they gave us to go to this next hotel room, and when we approached it, the door was like kind of open. So when we walked in, we opened the door, and then there's like this row of people, and they're like standing against the wall, and we're like, wow, this room must be full. There's a ton of people against the wall, but the room is like completely dark, almost like pitch black almost. And like the only light that can be seen is the light from the hallways. We open the door and it lights these people up against like the wall. And like we walk in, we make our way in, and we're kind of looking around, kind of trying to see, and we just notice there's like a bunch of people. And there's like, beds kind of moved away again, like that one room, and there's people on these beds or whatever. And once we started to realize what we could see, there was just straight up mass sex on every bed. Couples, girls on girls, 3 or 4 guys with one girl. I mean, you name it, you could see it, and they were scattered everywhere. It was what I called scattered ass that night. It was like there was just scattered ass everywhere. And so I was, young, and like, wow, and now I knew that what the people were doing against the wall. They were like, they were unsure about going into the melee. And so me and the girl I was with, she kind of stands there. I was like, man, I'm gonna walk up, because there was this really beautiful blonde and this young guy, and they were on the edge of this bed, and he was getting oral service from her, and she had her butt in the air, like aimed at the end of the bed. And so like I just walked up, and I'm fully dressed, and I just walked up, and the dude just all of a sudden goes like this and hands me a condom, just here, just that quick, boom. And I was like, wow. So I didn't do anything at that point, because it was a lot to take in. And I'm looking around the room, and I'm noticing that there's a lot of oral things going on with girls' butts in the air, like almost like an invitation, like come on over. So the girl I was with was like, oh, I see what's happening here. And she was a party girl. I mean, me and her had done things, and she'd done things with another band member or two or whatever in my band, and so she wasn't shy about getting naked in front of people. She didn't care. And so but again, it was a lot to take in, so we decided that we'd do exploring. And so we went from like hotel to hotel room that were on this list, and it was pretty much the same thing. All of this was going on, just bodies, mass sex going on everywhere. And so I decided, and I'm trying to wrap this up as fast as I can, so just briefly, and we'd said if we get separated, just meet back at the hotel room, at our hotel room that we had gotten. So I hadn't seen her in a while, so I got worried about her, and I was, checking out the sights and everything, you know what I mean? And so I decided to go back to the hotel room, and I go into the hotel room, ours, and I opened the door, and immediately when I opened it, our room's dark, and I noticed there's people sitting in our chairs, like, and we had a very small, little room, and there's a bunch of people sitting in the chairs, and I look over, and there's 2 beds in there. There's one for her, one for me, and I look over, and she's writing some guy in her bed, and I look over, and there's like another couple goofing around in mine, and I'm like, okay, all right, had made herself at home, and so. I'm like, okay. I'm like, hey, you doing okay, girl? And she was like, yeah, once she saw me or whatever, and she was tipsy or whatever. And some guy that was sitting there, like, kind of came over to her and was unbuttoning his fly, if you will, to get oral satisfaction. Dude, and like, was like, no, and like pushes her off, like, pulls up his stuff and like leaves the room because this other guy was gonna pull down his junk, I guess, and the girl I was with was receptive to that, or whatever. So anyway, so I get me like a cold beer because I had put them underneath some chairs and the table that we were at, and there was like a little mini fridge in there or whatever, and I had some in there. So I go and I get me a beer, and I'm just like, as long as you're okay, I'm gonna go take a walk. She's like, I'm fine. And so I said, okay. So I went and took a walk. And it was a memorable evening. All right, sorry about that. Had to do a battery change. It happens. All right, battery went dead. But anyway, so in conclusion, so it was definitely a memorable night. One that I've never forgotten. Learned a lot about people and things and stuff that night. So yeah, I mean, it was definitely, that was one of the most exciting moments as far as being in a band, and not necessarily a direct groupie thing, but it kind of played along the line. So that's kind of why I told that story. But I have a lot of stories, man, about groupies and local band, being in a local band. Yes, local bands get groupies too, absolutely, especially in the rock world, man, for sure. So that was definitely an enjoyable and learning time for me, if you will. So it was those were good days. But I just wanted to share those stories with you and get your thoughts on it. Hey man, if you guys got any stories, if you're in a band or in a band now and you got some stories that you can go, yeah, hey, feel free to share it. Keep it clean. Try to keep it PG-13 if you can in the comment section. But I definitely will read that because I'm sure we can relate. But definitely, if you're from the Dallas or Wichita Falls area in Texas, and know of the Mac Stack was the name of the place. Tim McMillan, that was his name. So Tim McMillan, he was a radio DJ for the Bear in Wichita Falls, Texas, and he owned a club called the Mac Stack. So if you want to comment about that or talk about that, that'd be awesome. You want to talk about Deep Ellum in Dallas, great place back in the day, especially for metal bands. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so that was kind of a couple little stories. I hope it was entertaining. I know I went a long-winded, but definitely some memorable times. So again, I hope you're doing well out there. Some more entertaining and fun videos are coming up. Just hang with me on some of these chat videos, and some giveaways definitely are coming. And I hope that you will subscribe and like this channel and follow me on life's journeys, man. And maybe one day I'll be bringing you a stack of cash if I get this channel going and the other things I've got going on. So anyway, be well, do well out there. Hope the best for you, and stay cool, man. See you next time. Sir Blasphemy out.